Predicting the outcome of a potential presidential race between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris would require an in-depth look at each candidate's strengths, weaknesses, and public perception, as well as the current political, economic, and social landscape in the United States. Both candidates bring distinct qualities and appeal to different voter bases, and the outcome would likely hinge on critical issues, campaign strategies, and the overall mood of the electorate leading up to the election. Backgrounds and political profiles of Trump and Harris. Donald Trump is a former president who maintains a strong and loyal base among conservative and populist voters. His supporters value his commitment to America First policies, his stance on economic nationalism, and his straightforward, often divisive rhetoric. Despite facing multiple legal challenges and controversies, Trump remains one of the most influential figures in the Republican Party and has announced his intent to run again. Kamala Harris, the current vice president, is a prominent figure in the Democratic Party and brings significant experience in law and governance as a former senator from California and former Attorney General of California. Known for her progressive stance on issues like social justice, healthcare, and climate change, Harris is well-positioned to attract the Democratic base and some independent voters interested in progressive policies and diversity in leadership. Key issues that would shape the election. Several pressing issues will likely influence voter preferences in a Trump-Harris election matchup, each candidate presenting markedly different approaches. 1. Economic recovery and inflation. The economy is a central concern for American voters. While Trump's previous administration saw economic growth before the COVID-19 pandemic, his approach to trade, deregulation, and tax cuts would likely be a key talking point. Harris, representing the Biden administration, would focus on recent efforts to combat inflation and create jobs in renewable energy and technology sectors. The state of the economy at the time of the election will greatly influence whether voters are drawn to Trump's promises of deregulation and tax relief or Harris's push for sustainable economic policies. 2. Healthcare and social security. Trump and Harris differ substantially on healthcare and social safety net policies. Trump, who attempted to repeal the Affordable Care Act, is likely to advocate for policies that reduce government involvement in healthcare. In contrast, Harris supports expanding healthcare access and preserving Medicare and Social Security. These stances would significantly impact older voters and those dependent on federal healthcare, who may view Harris as a more reliable protector of these benefits. 3. Climate change and energy policy. With climate change becoming increasingly significant, Harris's stance on clean energy, climate action, and sustainability may attract environmentally conscious voters. Conversely, Trump's policies favor traditional energy industries such as oil and coal and focus on reducing environmental regulations to spur economic growth. The differing visions on climate and energy policy will be critical, especially for younger voters and those in areas affected by environmental changes. 4. Immigration and border security. Immigration remains a deeply divisive issue. Trump is known for his hardline stance on immigration and border security, advocating for stricter policies and a border wall. Harris, conversely, supports comprehensive immigration reform and humane treatment for immigrants and asylum seekers. The candidate who can effectively address the balance between national security and humane immigration policies will have an advantage, especially among Hispanic and immigrant communities. 5. Social issues and cultural divisions. Social issues such as abortion rights, LGBTQ+ rights, and racial justice have become more polarized, particularly with recent Supreme Court rulings. Harris's progressive views appeal to those in favor of expanding rights and protections for marginalized communities, while Trump's conservative stance resonates with voters prioritizing traditional values. These issues are crucial for energizing the respective bases, especially younger, socially active voters for Harris and religious and conservative voters for Trump. Strengths and challenges of each candidate. Strengths of Donald Trump. 1. Strong base of loyal supporters. Trump's followers are notably loyal, and his message resonates deeply with a segment of voters who feel left behind by globalization and cultural change. His base is also highly motivated to vote, and Trump has a proven ability to energize voters in swing states. 2. Economic and populist appeal. Trump's economic policies, focused on tax cuts and deregulation, have broad appeal among conservative and small business constituencies. His "America First" rhetoric continues to resonate with many voters concerned about job security and American manufacturing. Challenges for Trump. 1. Legal issues and controversies. Trump's legal battles and past controversies, including investigations surrounding January 6, could hurt his image with moderate and independent voters who may otherwise be sympathetic to conservative policies. 2. Polarizing personality. Trump's style appeals to his base but alienates many moderates and Democrats who are put off by his confrontational approach. Winning over undecided voters may be a challenge if Trump is unable to appeal to a broader audience. Strengths of Kamala Harris. 1. Diverse appeal and progressive platform. As the first female, Black, and South Asian vice president, Harris represents diversity and progress, which may appeal to minority groups and progressive voters who prioritize social equity and justice. 2. Experienced leadership. Harris's experience in government and her position as vice president give her credibility and the potential to draw voters who prioritize stable and experienced leadership. Her work on issues like climate change and social justice appeals to younger and progressive voters. Challenges for Harris. 1. Perception of limited influence as vice president. Harris has faced criticism for perceived limitations in her role as vice president, and some voters may see her as less influential than expected. Overcoming this perception could be challenging, especially when contrasted with Trump's strong personality. 2. Polarizing progressive policies. While her progressive stances are popular among Democrats, they could alienate more moderate or conservative voters who view some policies as too far-reaching. This could make it difficult to win over independents or moderate Republicans. ## Potential voter demographics and electoral impact. In an election between Trump and Harris, certain voter groups will be critical. Independent and swing voters. These voters are essential in battleground states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Trump's appeal to populist and working-class voters may help him here, but Harris's progressive platform and diverse background could attract independents, especially if her campaign emphasizes unity and equity. Young voters and minorities. Harris may have an edge among younger voters and minority groups, given her progressive stance on social issues and representation. Younger voters are increasingly concerned with issues like climate change, healthcare, and social justice, all areas Harris emphasizes. Rural and working-class voters. Trump's messages about economic protectionism, deregulation, and support for traditional industries resonate with rural and working-class voters. Harris will need to address economic inequalities and job opportunities in these areas to gain support. Campaign strategies. For Trump, the strategy would likely focus on energizing his loyal base, especially in battleground states, and framing Harris as too progressive or inexperienced. His campaign could emphasize economic growth, border security, and opposition to woke policies to appeal to traditional conservatives and populist voters. Harris's strategy would likely include a focus on progressive policies and a commitment to climate action, healthcare, and racial justice. She may emphasize unity, inclusive leadership, and the need for innovation to attract young voters, women, and minority groups. Her campaign might also focus on portraying Trump as a polarizing figure, contrasting her vision for inclusivity and progressive change. Conclusion: an uncertain but high-stakes election. If the 2024 election features a matchup between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, the race would reflect the starkly different political directions each candidate represents. Trump's appeal lies in his ability to energize a loyal conservative base, while Harris's strengths are her progressive vision and diverse appeal. The outcome would depend largely on the state of the economy, voter turnout among key demographics, and each candidate's ability to address critical issues effectively. The election could be one of the most polarized in American history, with each candidate representing different visions of the country's future. Ultimately, the next president will likely be the candidate who successfully balances the desires for economic security, social equity, and steady leadership, appealing not only to their base but also to the vital swing voters who could tip the scales.